Hey, everybody, Biology 30. We're going to do an overview of Unit 2. So I'm just going to grab my screen. I think I've got a student question, so I'm going to go to that in a moment. I just want to grab the screen I want to use for the lesson. And so that'll take me a moment to pull up. And of course, we're working off our course, Unit 2, the student notes. And but yeah, did one of the classmates here have a question?
Yes, hello Phil and hello everybody. My name is Layla. I have two questions. So one, it's about the textbook, the biology inquiry into biology textbook. So I was actually wondering, like, do we actually need to get the textbook, or are the information that you have provided us like
Per-
good enough? Do we need
Perfect. Can I
extra?
answer? I'll answer that one. And,
Absolutely.
and and that's a great question. We say, and it is true, the textbook is optional. Now, it doesn't hurt to have it. And also, here's a hint. Go to Google, search for it. You will find it. You can also email me. I'll send you the link. It's posted by a teacher at Ross Shep High School. Probably technically not allowed. That's fine. It's been up there for about 7 years. I would not print the whole thing, but you can use it as a supplemental resource. It doesn't hurt to have it. If you have the physical copy, it doesn't hurt to have it, but you won't, you, if you don't have it, if you never look at it, you can do extremely well in this course. These unit notes that we've got for you, the student notes, are extremely focused. They are exactly what you need. Did that help? Did that answer your question?
Yes, that was really helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, your next question.
Yes, it's about each unit. So you have also provided us with a worksheet about like how to divide the weeks and like the units among the week.
The
But
time.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was wondering if we can like divide it according to our schedule, or like let's say the first unit instead of 3 weeks, like right now we're taking over, like let's say four, and then some other units like the genetics and stuff like that, we can take maybe less weeks instead of whatever you're providing
Great,
us.
a great question. Ultimately, this is a guideline, and what you all want to do is, and most have started around about May 4th. Map out what 20 weeks is, because you have 20 weeks to do the course. Then, look at what we've suggested and see where that ends up with. I think it gets you done in about 16. So in other words, but check it yourself. But in other words, you've got some time to play with, and also we know how busy everybody is with this. So you're going to be sometimes doing a lot of work on weekends, early mornings, late at night, and I've seen it, and I know how hard you guys work, and it's amazing, and I'm like, you guys are heroes, I'll tell you that, truly. And so use it as a guideline, but definitely make sure you know, okay, when is my 20th week? When do I have to be done? And map that out. Map out when you think you're going to do your midterm. And yeah, plug away, do as much as you can, but we know you've got busy lives. And sometimes I might suggest, hey, you should be here. If you're not there, don't panic. Does that kind of answer that question?
Oh, yes, that was really, really good. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm gonna plan it
That's
accordingly right
fantastic.
now.
Yeah,
Thank you.
fantastic. And I really appreciate these questions on these live overviews, but I also record these. So folks might be watching by recording, and I'm sure that might have helped them as well. So I'm just going to dive into it. I mean, ultimately, again, the unit notes with links to videos are exactly what you need. Read through them, watch the videos, do the practice questions. A subtle hint on the practice questions, you might see them again. So definitely making your own study notes, etc., helps. But yeah, let's just get this show on the road. This is the Unit 2 notes. I've just kind of taken some screen captures of some critical things. Right off the bat on page 2, make sure you know these key glands. These key glands release release hormones. They're an endocrine gland, fancy name for hormone releasing gland. It's a chemical. And hormones are extremely powerful chemicals. Think of a child who might be 11 or 12. Suddenly, you compare that child when they're 13, 14, 15, and they're basically an adult almost. Depends on the kid, obviously, and everyone's a bit different. But definitely, we saw that with my daughter, was a kid, and then literally a couple years later, she's an adult, basically. So hormones are incredibly powerful. And yeah, that's just what this is a study of ultimately. Super, super neat. So you want to make sure that you know where these are. because you'll probably get diagrams. And instead of the names, it'll be, okay, what's number 4? Or, which one of these produces insulin? Okay, it's the pancreas. So, and, might be number 4, number 5, whatever, number 6. I don't know but you're going to run into questions like that. You need to know their locations. You need to know what an endocrine gland does, releases chemicals into our blood. Now, those chemicals, they can target specific cells, right? The hormones, or they can target all cells. Insulin, for example, is such a powerful hormone. It literally targets every cell in your body. And of course, what it does is it opens the door. Let's do a better animation for that. Here it is. It opens a door into the cell to let sugar, to let glucose in. Otherwise, if insulin, let's say you had no insulin, which would be dead, but let's just say you had no insulin, all the sugar you'd be eating would not get into your cells. And that's also why you'd die. So insulin is incredibly important. With diabetes, there's a problem. The person still has insulin, but not as much, or it's not working as well. And ultimately, by giving them insulin shots, it's going to help get the blood sugar into their cells, all cells. So yeah, so hormones have targets. Some of them are highly specific. Some of them are highly generalized. So page 2 is obviously pretty important. Let's scroll down here. This is page 5. And these are just some highlights. Obviously, you need to go through this stuff. This is a great summary on page 5. We've got the gland where the hormone comes from. Hypothalamus is actually super interesting. You'll read about it. It's a link between the nervous system and the endocrine system because they obviously work together, right? Obviously, your nervous system is super fast. Your endocrine system is slower. And that's important to know, by the way, that distinction between the endocrine system and the nervous system. Unit 1, which you're studying, no doubt, right now, and it's okay if you're just starting Unit 1. Unit 1 that you're starting right now is the nervous system. And yeah, electrochemical signals, we see something, and in microseconds, we know, oh, it's a coyote. Okay, oh no, there's 5 coyotes. They're chasing me. Okay, and my heart rate's going to go up, right? So immediately that the nervous system sends a message to the adrenal gland, which is just above our kidneys, to release adrenaline or epinephrine or norepinephrine. Those are 2 different but very similar. And epinephrine and norepinephrine, heart's going to go, and we're going to be ready to fight or fly. Not literally, because we're human. We're very good at falling. We're not very good at flying. But anyway, fight or flight response will happen. And that's an example of the nervous system. Sensory neuron going to interneuron in the brain and working with the endocrine system and working with the ability of, say, your adrenal glands, which definitely are going to be on here. There we go, adrenal medulla. So in the middle, basically, it's a little gland on top of our kidneys. And epinephrine, norepinephrine, there it is. Yeah, raise blood glucose levels. Yeah, you better. If you're going to have to run away from a bunch of coyotes, and probably don't do that. I think you would want to maybe, do a course in what to do about coyotes. I'll leave that for today. This wasn't intended to be a coyote lecture, and I'm not a coyote expert, so let's just leave that one. Okay, again, feel free if you've got questions to say, Phil, but so far so good. It's looking out there. Even shoot me a thumbs up or a yes, it's good in the text chat. Just lets me know you can hear me and all that stuff. What are some other highlights? That was a big highlight here. Definitely, thyroxine is a real cool one for Canadians, especially if we spend a lot of time outdoors in the winter. Our body's going to realize, hey, I'm in a cold place. And our body's going to naturally release more thyroxine. And thyroxine increases metabolic rate. It is actually a suggested strategy. And in fact, it does work, taking cold showers to actually increase your metabolic rate. Probably most people aren't going to be too much into that. Probably just doing regular exercise is a little easier. But literally, if you took a cold shower every day instead of a warm shower, you would increase your metabolic rate because of thyroxine. That's kind of cool, right? We can hack our systems to kind of do what we want. So that's some key stuff. Yeah, page 5, super, super key. Oh, also, rated right here. No Negative feedback examples. Okay, so if we're dehydrated, ADH, again, super powerful. It says it in its name. Anti-diuretic means don't pee, anti-pee, because when we're peeing, we're letting water out of our body, and so if we're extremely dehydrated or even just a little bit dehydrated, ADH slows down that water. It reabsorbs it. It takes it right at the kidney, and so it targets the kidney. This is a great example of a hormone that targets the kidney. You can kind of see that here in the diagram. Targets the kidney to essentially say, hey, let's keep some water in our blood, because that's the purpose of water, is it needs to be in our blood, available to our cells. It's a great example of negative feedback. I won't go through all of this, but I will stress the importance of understanding negative feedback and understanding many examples. And just kind of quickly, what we can see here is ultimately what ADH does is now we've got higher blood pressure, so we've got more water, right? It's less going into our urine, right? So there's more water in your blood, and so then that's a negative feedback. It basically will shut down the release of ADH, because you could kind of see if the body kept releasing ADH, well, then we wouldn't urinate at all, and that would be bad. So ultimately, this is critical for hormones, that they have a negative feedback. If they got out of control, and we'll look at some conditions that can happen, especially with human growth hormone, if it gets out of control. If you've ever seen, or if you're aware of Andre the Giant, agromelia, or basically giantism, essentially in adulthood. So his body was releasing throughout his whole life human growth hormone, which isn't normal. We're supposed to stop. We still have some human growth hormone as an adult, but not as much, right? Around about 18. For some people, even into their 20s, they're still growing, but generally it's shut down. Again, super powerful, right? Human growth hormone is one of those hormones that can take a child and turn them into an adult. For our son, he was one of the smaller kids for a long time, and then literally in about a year, it was crazy how much he changed. He just grew. He actually has stretch marks on his back because he grew so fast. So it was quite amazing to see him change. So yeah, that's something, again, you can usually apply this to either your life or if you've got kids and stuff. Okay. What else we got here? Do I have any other things? Oh yeah, so this is diabetes insipidus. Now, it's actually not diabetes, but because what was realized with diabetes is a person urinates a lot more. And so before diabetes was fully understood, this was thought to be a form of diabetes. Insipidus means terrible. This disease means the super terrible. It wasn't really diabetes. It's a problem with ADH, and essentially the pituitary, we're not actually producing ADH. Okay, so therefore we're peeing like crazy, and this is terrible to have, and it's treatable now. But you can imagine if a person and literally can produce like 15 liters of urine, they would be so dehydrated. And yeah, again, that's why it was named this. And it's probably a good one to know about. It's a great example of how powerful these hormones are, and then when they're not in place, the kind of problems that can happen. So yeah, so that's on page 6. Again, you're going to want to go through all of this, but I'm highlighting some key things and relating it to some examples that are I think we can all get that 15 liters of urine a day, that would, and actually can even be up to 20. It would just be the end of us practically, right? Like that's just not sustainable. So, and it can be treated is the good thing. So the master gland is what I want to talk about next, the pituitary. Let's show you that. Pituitary is the master gland. So that starts on page 8, we start telling you about the pituitary, the master gland. There's some good videos and stuff there. Again, yeah, you'd definitely be using the videos in our course. Ultimately, you want to know, oh, look, there's ADH. We were just talking about it from the posterior pituitary. It's very small up in our brain, like, just a tiny, but it's a master control system. There's a good, this page right here, page 9, really gives you a sense of the hormones. So there's ADH, again, targeting the kidney. Oxytocin, so this can cause contractions to get childbirth going, and also the mammary gland. So basically, when a baby is nursing, and so essentially to cause just that natural contraction and start to release the milk for the baby. And so that's also, obviously something, especially as adults, very interesting, right? To know how all this stuff works. There's thyroid stimulating hormone. ACTH, this one, if we're under extreme long-term stress, this one will be released a lot. But in normal, like, and I mean, we're all under stress from time to time, so hopefully that's not the case for anybody long-term stress. But ACTH is also critical for waking up. This is why, if you've noticed, I'm sure most of us have noticed this at least at some point, in the morning, suddenly it's like, oh, I'm so warm. And then you get up. Well, that's ACTH, basically. It's your little clock, and it just suddenly gets released. So it's inhibited during the night, and especially during sleep. It's inhibited, which is a good thing, because you wouldn't sleep, basically, if it wasn't inhibited. And that's also why you wake up almost naturally sometimes. And I definitely notice this myself. It's like, okay, I'm cooking here. I better get up. And it's 6 a.m., right? And you just pop out of bed. It's pretty cool. So yeah, so that's just some examples of the master gland. It actually is usually controlling other glands. So this is a great example of that there's thyroid stimulating hormone to then stimulate the thyroid, and then the thyroid releases thyroxine. That would be the one, again, as a Canadian, if we're spending a lot of time outdoors in the cold, in a cold winter, going out, say, working outside every day, few hours, our body's going to pick that up, and it's going to increase our metabolic rate just naturally, and it's going to be the extra thyroxine being released by the thyroid. But it had to be stimulated by the pituitary, thyroid stimulating. And as you read through this and as you go through each hormone, you'll start to see, they're really controlled. It's a really interesting control system, almost like a job, right? So, the manager tells the employee to do something, but then, I don't know, the customers are all satisfied. So then that customer satisfaction gets back to the manager, and the manager says, okay, good job. And then the employee doesn't do whatever they were doing to whatever, right? You kind of get it, how that's kind of a control mechanism. Yeah, so some of the targets for the pituitary we're just looking at here, page 9, you definitely need to know that. Some conditions, and I've already mentioned a few to do with hormones. Let's look at a few just down here. Page 10 is where I'm going to go to next. And let's see what we got here. This is also a good way to learn, but obviously there could be questions on this stuff. The one that Andre the Giant has, so acromegaly. You can also, Google can help you pronounce stuff, so I often use that, and sometimes I might get it wrong. Anyway, HGH, human growth hormone, really important, obviously, especially for kids growing, does slow down production, but with this condition, and Andre the Giant would be somebody who had that, the person's body continues to release the HGH, and they continue to grow, and that doesn't really help for an adult. That's not effective. This is one that athletes use to cheat. And of course, they're not taking tons and tons of it, but they're doing so much training that their body does need to have, extra testosterone, to survive. The amount of training that some of the top athletes end up doing. I'm not saying they're all cheating. Some of them definitely aren't. But for folks, if you know the name Lance Armstrong, he talked about all the cheating he did, all the drugs he took. He still had to do all the training. It's not like he sat on his couch and jumped off his couch and then won the Tour de France. But powerful hormones like human growth hormone and testosterone can definitely help super high performance athletes cheat and get caught, because people tell on them, or it becomes evident because they end up being too good. It's like, how can you win 7 Tour de France, buddy? It's not possible. Sorry. I mean, you might be a good athlete, but that's a bit over the top. So yeah, so anyway, talking about some conditions here on this page. I think I got another example of negative feedback here. So obviously, yep, there we go. Negative feedback is obviously important. Might get a question about that. And if you do happen to get a question about negative feedback, maybe make sure you've got at least one, but you really should know many specific examples. So, you know, here would be the thyroid stimulating hormone releasing thyroxine. Now the thyroxine will get back and basically shut that pathway down. The thyroxine, what this is going to do though, it's going to increase your metabolic rate. Now, if you had too much thyroxine though, that's bad because basically you'd be jittery, literally. You would not be able to sleep properly. You would actually get way too skinny, and don't think of it as that's not a good thing. There's really bad conditions to do with that, but ultimately the body luckily doesn't do that to us, that, you know, as long as it's functioning properly, that, you know, once thyroxine, if there's basically just the right level in the bloodstream, the pathway gets shut down. And again, make sure you know that you could use this one. If you got a question asking you to write about this, you could use this one, or there's a bunch in here and you should frankly know them all. They're really good examples of understanding how our body controls these super powerful hormones. And again, hormones are long lasting, right? It's not like they just, maybe except for epinephrine, right? I guess epinephrine's a good example of one. As soon as it's released, it's just like, but it's still super powerful, and we almost have to run to get all that kind of energy out of us. The hormones affect, because otherwise we'll just be too stressed. So talking about stress, let's talk about it. I've talked a little bit about this, the stress here. I think it's right here. Yeah, page 17 and 18, long-term and short-term stress. So, you know, the fight or flight, the sympathetic system is definitely going to be involved in this one here, the adrenal. So this is at our kidneys. And again, you're going to read through all this stuff. So that my intention here isn't necessarily, am I going to remember everything from this session with Phil? No, but you're going to then use this to trigger yourself when you go do your studying, and you can come back and watch some of this too. And you might even want to watch this just before you prep to write the Unit 2 exam, for example, right? Watch it again. So anyway, so the short-term stress is basically epinephrine, and so increasing our heart rate. Well, long-term stress, so cortisol, and that's actually, it starts with ACTH being released, and you'll see this as you read through the notes. So the ACTH gets released, and it causes the adrenal cortex, so basically the adrenal gland, to release cortisol. Cortisol is super powerful hormone. Essentially, if we're under long-term stress, we're probably not eating right. And so what cortisol will do is actually it'll help our body eat itself. It'll break down muscle and turn it into glucose. It'll break down fat and turn it into glucose. Don't think of that as a good way to diet, having this stuff happen. Again, hormones are super powerful. They are not things that you play with. And frankly, those super athletes, they're paying doctors like millions of bucks. And that Lance Armstrong, whatever, he's paying his doctor about $1 million a year to make sure he didn't kill himself from taking all those drugs. So it's not, and then no doctor, it's totally unethical that a doctor would do that anyway. But yeah, it's just, anyway, just a little side trip there on how powerful hormones are, what cortisol does. Aldosterone can cause an increase in blood pressure. So long-term stress is not good for us, right? And hopefully whatever that long-term stress is, if a person is under it, I mean, that's why sometimes you got to see a doctor for, well, all that kind of stuff, right? And see if there's a way to bring down that stress level, because eventually the body is not really designed for too much long-term stress. A little bit of stress is good. There's nothing wrong. In fact, if we don't have stress, that's stressful. So we need We need stress to develop ourselves and to keep healthy. It's just too much can be, well, too much. And that's specifically what's going on with long-term stress. It's cortisol. And yeah, you're going to want to know what's going on with both of those, short-term and long-term stress. Let's talk about insulin. I talked about it a little bit at the beginning. The fact that all hormones have a target. Some of them are super specific, right? And so ADH, its target is the kidneys. Actually, aldosterone also, its target is the kidney. So some hormones have a specific group of cells that they target, and other ones like insulin, thyroxine, they basically target everybody, all the cells, especially insulin, because insulin's job is arguably the most important. Pretty hard to argue that. I mean, yeah, I guess breathing. So I'm breathing in oxygen. That's pretty important. But you see, we're breathing in oxygen to burn glucose for cellular respiration. And who brings the glucose into the cell? Insulin, right? So let's look at that. I think I've got that over here in my screen captures. Yes, there we go. So what page? Yeah, page 22. Hormone regulation of blood sugar. Really critical to have our blood sugar levels as low as possible, frankly. I mean, and you're going to know that if you're hungry. Now, the thing is, our society, and I guess there's nothing wrong with it. I like our society, but we have an excessive access to food. And we probably don't quite need as much. I mean, definitely don't go and stop eating and stuff. Just eat healthily. But we have really easy access to food, so we really don't normally run into this. It does not hurt to be a little hungry. Because when we're hungry, we're actually helping our cells be more sensitive to insulin, and therefore for the whole system to work better. Because insulin's job is so important, right? It targets your cell and then literally opens a door on your cell to let glucose in, because glucose will not get into your cells without the help of insulin. It just won't. It's too big. It's a big molecule, and it can't get through the cell membrane. And so it's incredibly important. And glucose in your blood sugar, in your blood, glucose in your blood is not healthy. Having high blood sugar, again, I'm not, trying to put a damper on a party. Oh, you mean I can't go and eat a whole chocolate bar? Well, okay, sure, once a month or something. I would not suggest having a full chocolate bar every day. That's not how our species developed. And it'd be hard. It's actually pretty hard on you eventually. Like it's not gonna kill you in a day. Okay, there we go. Yeah, a bit of a comment in the chat. That's good. I appreciate it. Right, like you're personalizing what you're hearing, which a single chocolate bar, even if you're having a fair amount of chocolate bars, isn't going to cause a problem. But if you do it day in, day out, year after year, we got a body here that is an incredible machine system. But it has to be taken care of. It could take a body 20, 30, 40, 50 years to finally go, oh, this has been tough, this lifestyle. But at some point, lifestyle will catch up. And so be active, because when we're active, when we're exercising, we burn off that glucose, right? That glucose, because it's going to go right into our muscle cells. And again, with the help of insulin. It's all about insulin. And it's critical to understand that, critical to understand the condition of diabetes, which, to put it simply, a diabetic, there's something wrong about their insulin. Either the pancreas, the islets of Langerhans and the pancreas. Yeah, you need to know that. So the islets of Langerhans and the pancreas are either not producing insulin, maybe very much, or perhaps improperly. It's a protein, right? Insulin is a protein. You're going to learn in Unit 5. Hey, that's a while away, but it's going to come soon. Your DNA, a gene, has a plan for your protein, and if there's an error in that plan, which there can be, then there's going to be a little error in your insulin, and maybe it doesn't work as well, or perhaps not at all. That's probably pretty rare because insulin is so important, but that could be part of it. Here's an interesting fact about the insulin that, diabetics get. It is actually human insulin, and we use bacteria to actually grow it for us, to produce it. And we insert the human gene, we insert the plan right into the bacteria, and we just feed the bacteria and they grow. And one of the things they make for us is human insulin. And so then you can get real human insulin. Before that, and that technology was designed in Canada in the 1980s, early 1980s. Before that, the insulin people used with diabetes was porcine, pig insulin. Pig insulin is very close to human insulin. It's a little different, but it's close enough that it works. It also shows us that we have a common ancestor to pigs, to mammals, right? We're a mammal. We got hair, we're warm-blooded, also kind of cool, right? So yeah, so definitely need to know about insulin, regulation of blood sugar, the location, where it's created in the pancreas, released into the blood. It's a powerful, powerful hormone, targets all cells. What else I got here on insulin? Because I got a few things I want to show you from. So that's page 22. Okay, yeah, 23. Do we hear negative feedback again? That must be important. So both insulin and glycogen, the glucose is all gone. Okay, so let's do this. We probably, and I know most of us don't think this, but we probably all of us have the capacity to walk to Calgary if we had to. If we had to, without eating. You'd probably need to drink some water, but we'd just stop by some creeks or whatever. And I wouldn't recommend this. So don't try this today or this weekend. Oh, I'm going to walk to Calgary and find a creek to drink out of on my way. Yeah, let's not do that. But you can imagine. Anyway, as you're walking, and yes, you've got water, but you're not eating, your blood sugar is going to get lower and lower and lower. You're going to be getting hungry. But what'll happen is the glucose is gone, the glycogen. So glycogen gets released. And what glycogen does, basically right here, glycogen you got stored glucose as glycogen in your liver. Your liver is a great storehouse. I'm sure most of you have heard of, super duper endurance athletes, running marathons, ultra marathons, triathlons, Ironman events, and watched a show on this guy, Kilian Jornet, and he runs through the mountains. I'm going to go run 100 miles. He's a pretty unique individual. Like most people cannot I'm just going to go run 100 miles. But what you do have, if you train enough, you do have a ton of calories available in our liver, glycogen, stored glucose. And when the glucose is gone, glycogen, it can get put into the blood and then eventually lead to high blood sugar. Or then you eat and you got high blood sugar, and then you got high blood sugar, insulin gets released. Well, then insulin causes all your tissues to absorb the sugar, right? So it causes your liver to get that sugar in storage, causes the muscles. Muscles will also store glucose as glycogen. Oh, they'll use it, right? If you're exercising, or even if, you're doing, even just standing up and stuff, walking around a house, even doing housework is good, or yard work is a good thing. Any extra sugar, insulin helps it go into fat cells and get stored as fat. This is incredibly important, right? Our fat storages are making sure if we ever do run out of food, we're going to be fine. We might not be happy, but, we can, and don't try this, but, you can go days without eating. Do not do that. It's not a good idea, because you'll just, it's not good. So just exercise if you can, even do housework or walk around the block once a day or something, or get out and jog 3 times a week, even just for 30 minutes. You'll totally tune your body, especially this whole thing right here. When insulin goes to your cells, it's going to let the glucose in, and it's going to keep your blood sugars nice and healthy. And many people, not all, many people with diabetes can control their diabetes without medication. And again, this is not all people with diabetes, but many can control it without medication, with diet and with exercise. And it's a good idea for all of us to do a good little diet thing. And we don't have to go run marathons or anything, just even 3 times a week. So yeah, know about insulin, know about glycogen. Looks like there's a sample question I'm highlighting here on page 24. Definitely is going to be a good one for you to go through, as are all the sample questions in the notes. I always like to make sure I'm respecting people's time. So I've gotten to the end of everything I wanted to highlight for Unit 2, but there might be questions, and definitely I can hang out for as long as folks like. It is always good if someone's got a question to capture it on recording, if you're okay with that. And so if you got a question, and just feel free to put in a text chat or take the mic, it's all good. I'll probably stop the recording pretty shortly, but we'll still be here together as a group if you've got questions related to anything I've just gone over about Unit 2, about the endocrine system. If you're watching this on recording and you got a question, just shoot me an email. The nice thing too, I'll have this posted, probably won't be till later tonight, but it'll be posted onto our Moodle site, so all of you here can refer back. When it's recording, you can pause it, you can move it back, you can kind of go ahead, oh, okay, I don't need to hear this part. And so you can, it's very effective, the whole process of watching this by recording. So I also encourage you to do that, and definitely to probably watch this one even again, or parts of it at least again, before you do the Unit 2 exam. So in a week or two, or even whatever that is, even if that's about 3 weeks from today or whatever. So yeah, I'm probably going to stop the recording, but I'll just do a little pause. Are there any questions? So I'll just pause for a moment. Are there any questions? You can put them in the text chat, even if you put a not right now, or oh, there's a hand. Natalia, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a question based on the chart on page 5. We need to memorize that whole chart.
That is a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. So, and I'm going to put it two ways. First, yes. and then, yes, you need to learn it. And memorizing and learning, they're very similar, obviously, because if somebody has just memorized a phone number, but if they're able to say the phone number 30 or 40 seconds later, in a sense, they've learned it. Maybe they don't learn it for very long. Maybe the next day they it was 780. I don't know what else. But my point being is that the more you go over this, it'll start to sink in. I mean, I've gone through the whole unit, so that can seem a bit daunting. So roll the movie back a little bit and say, hey, I'm gonna take at least 2 weeks for this unit. I'm gonna go through stuff. This is pretty interesting, knowing what some of these do. I mean, thyroid stimulating hormone gets the thyroid going, which then gets thyroxine going. So that's, if we're always working in the cold, or if we take a cold shower every day, we're gonna turn that pathway on. So it's also just intuitively interesting as well, and your brain will appreciate it. And yeah, you definitely need to know this chart. Does that help? That answer?
That does, yes. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. As we're learning, the key thing to learning is you connect new information with what you already know, with your experience, your preferences, and sometimes learning is, I thought something totally different, right? And we've all experienced that. We know that, or someone tells us something, and no, I think it's the opposite. Actually, sometimes when we run into those situations, it's when we learn the most. It's called cognitive dissonance. It's when we really go, huh? and anyway, that always relating. Okay, this information, is this something? Oh yeah, I can build on what I know. Oh, this is quite different than what I know. And anyway, that is how it works up here in the noodle, the brain. It is always wanting to take information and stick it into a place, basically. Okay, yeah, oh, this is neat, and just kind of stick it in there. If you take in new information, but then if you don't, review it enough, watch a video, take some notes, make a little note card, it'll come in and it'll come right out, because our brain is very efficient. Our brain, especially the society that we live in, with all of the information, it is very used to, oh yeah, that's cool, ha ha ha, and poop. and it just flies right out the skull. Goes in the skull. We kind of go, oh, that's cool, and then it flies right out. So when we're studying and learning, there is a different thing. We slow our brain down and we say, hey, I'm going to write this out. I'm going to do a little drawing. I'm going to read it. I'm going to look at a picture. I'm going to watch a video. If you do about 7 things, and I know that sounds 7 things, but it doesn't take long to do 7 different things, write something, read it, watch a video, then the next day review it a bit, look at the chart again, stuff like that. Your brain starts to go, oh yeah, I know this. Yeah, we looked at it yesterday. This, I'm supposed to remember this. Oh, and I like this stuff, right? Literally, you have to do that. Cool. Any other thoughts or questions or follow-up to that? I'll just do a pause. I'm going to stop the recording. Doesn't mean you have, go ahead. Another, Layla, thank you.
I have a question that might not be 100% related to.
That's okay. Let's hear it. There's going to be at least 20 people who have the same question.
Yeah, so it's about like when you mentioned like if we take cold showers, it will help us like when we're outside and stuff like that. So for me, like during a certain weather, like my body gets like really, really sensitive, my skin, and it turns red and like itchy and stuff. Yeah. So I know this is some sort of like an allergy, and maybe I need like epinephrine, like the injection and stuff. But will the cold water help with that as well?
That is an interesting question. I mean, ultimately, okay, so, and I'm going to really simplify. Sounds like maybe some hives. So basically, it's an allergic reaction. And so epinephrine can alleviate an allergic reaction. Specifically, it's going to cause an increase in heart rate, an increase in blood flow. So essentially, because our body's overreacting when it's an allergic reaction. In general, that's what we say, it's an overreaction. And so if we increase heart rate and increase blood flow, it usually gets whatever the problem is, the antigen. There's going to be something that's bugging our immune system, essentially. And actually exercise, if you're exercising and get stung by a bee or something, it usually doesn't cause a problem because you're already exercising. So that's essentially what the epinephrine is doing. Now you're wondering about whether like a cold shower, stuff on that. That is an interesting question. I don't think directly, but I think of a person, and there are folks, you can look up, there's YouTube videos, and I've been doing a cold shower every day for 30 days, and it's, here's some of the changes I've experienced. It's really cool. Some of the folks, they talk about, I've been running every day, or I've been doing 30 push-ups a day, and they talk about the changes that happen to them. I would think that, I mean, I don't think so. I had to think about it. Probably not. I don't know. Layla, did that help?
I guess. I don't know. It's just like I usually, this started ever since I like moved to Canada because of the weather, and like I used to live by the ocean back home. So we don't have this cold weather that actually goes to the bones and stuff. But yeah, it's been happening, and like it happens even like when like if we're playing outside with like water balloons and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's pollen. I don't know if it's the water. It's the weather. I have no idea.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. It's hard to say. I mean, ultimately, and probably it's something that's not. Oh, I don't need to see a doctor over it. But ultimately, any real question, or I won't say it that way, any questions a person has about something specific, it doesn't hurt to mention it to a doctor and just see, what their thoughts are. Because of course that's their big time job, is to look at a symptom and go, okay, so tell me more, and really go into depth about what could be the trigger. It certainly sounds like allergy to me, but you need to see a doctor for sure to know for sure.
I actually did. And nobody, I don't know if they were confused or they just didn't want to go any further, but they were like, oh, nothing, there's nothing, you're okay. And like, they just want to move on. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, and you probably almost need to observe it in real time. So like, okay, you're outside, like you said, playing with the balloons and stuff. And then, okay, so what's this rash look like? Like, literally even taking a picture of it to share with the doctor, right? Like, okay, so this is exactly what it looked like. And just in case they go, oh, that happened, right? Because they ultimately, any doctor / scientist or whatever needs that information as much as possible. Like, okay, so exactly what happened, and okay, so, and especially if it's okay, every time I do A, B, C, if I do A, B, C, this is what happens, and a picture of it or whatever. That's got to help. That's got to provide some data. Again, someone might still say, not sure. Don't worry. Cool. Any other thoughts or questions? Can be anything. I'm going to stop the recording, and but I'm still here, and you can still stay here. You can still ask questions. You can ask me to go over something again, but I do want to respect everybody's time and stuff. So that's all for the recording. Definitely this will get posted into our Moodle site. You can review it. And if you've been watching this on recording to this point, good job. Take care. Hit the stop recording. And that's all I